Okay, so this video is going to be how to make an Excel template. This will be part one, and really just going over from square one how to design a template and eventually make a sheet that you will hand to your athletes that looks like this. So really this video is going to cover actually designing the sheet and making it presentable as we would hand it out to our teams or athletes. And in part two of this video, eventually that'll go deeper into using the different functions, formulas, how to calculate our maxes, how to insert athlete rosters, drop down menus, and how to bring our percentages and calculate weights based on those percentages per athlete. So that'll be part two, but part one is really just going to cover actually designing our template. So what I'm going to do, I am going to share my Excel screen here. All right, make it full size. So first, I'm just going to adjust my cell size. I'm going to grab a bunch of cells going horizontally. This is definitely more than I need, but that's okay. So just through trial and error, I know that I like that cell size to be 5.17, and then I'm going to go same thing vertically. Once again, way more than I probably need. And I'm going to make these a 32. So this is kind of just knowing how my template fits on a 3-day model. You can always adjust this if you need to, but this is where I'm going to start. So starting on row 16, I'm going to grab a bunch of cells here. I grabbed 6. I'm going to merge them and write day 1. I leave a lot of room up top because eventually that's where I'll have my max calculator. And eventually afterwards, I'll put in warm-ups, prehabs, team, sport, athlete, and all of that stuff. But I'm going to start here for now. Next, I'm going to take 3 cells, command, and do that 3 more times. Merge those. I like to make a 4-week model. So that's just our 4 weeks. Then right underneath our day 1, I'll merge this cell. Usually I'll kind of write day of the week that I see the team, or maybe if this is like a total body session or a lower body emphasis, whatever it may be, you could write that in there as well. Next, I'll just kind of name this block. We have our A1 in this cell. I am going to go 6 rows. Normally I don't exceed 6 sets on this kind of first block. Could always change, but just for myself and how I've programmed in the past, I give myself about 6 rows here. And this is where I would write in my exercise name. We'll kind of get into eventually how to like fill these rows in, but these cells here, I like to have our weight, our percentage, and our reps. And then I'm going to take that, copy it, and paste it over for those 3 weeks. Okay. And eventually I leave these cells as singular cells because eventually I'll fill in reps. So let's say we're going 5 reps for 5 sets. That would be there. I could put in my percentages and so on and so forth. If I'm pairing this exercise, I'm going to have my A2. So my second exercise in my A block, use those as a superset. And I'll give myself maybe 3 rows here. Same thing, I would write in my exercise. And I have this. Next, let's go our first exercise of our B block. Once again, I'm going to go 4 rows, merge that right in my exercise. I'm going to go my second exercise in my B block. I'm going to take 3 rows here. merge those. Next, I'll go my C block, take 3, merge, C2. And so obviously, depending on how many exercises you have per block, if you superset them or whether you don't superset them, that's fine. But I typically have about 2 to 3 exercises in each of my blocks. So I'm just going to write this as 2 exercises per block. And then what I like to do at the end, and once again, this is just kind of how I've programmed, but I like to leave a row here where I call it our overtime block, or for some of my teams, I do what's called a bulletproof block. So it's kind of, focusing on, injury reduction and things like that. So targeting areas depending on the sport, whether it's, focusing on the knees, the hips, ankles. I like to call it our bulletproof block. And then what I'll do here is it's technically just our D block. I'll have 2 rows, D2 and D3. And these would all get filled in eventually. And what I did in this model too is I left a few rows at the end for some notes. I'll merge that for now. Okay, so now we have all this. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it look more presentable. So we'll start adding in some borders and things like that. So first, I'm just going to take the whole day and this area. I'm going to go to my borders and I'm going to click thick box border, and that'll create a nice box around this day. Next, I'm going to take kind of this area. Once again, I'm going to make a thicker border just to kind of distinguish it from the rest. And then what I also do is between every block, so between our A block and our B block, I'll put a thick border. Between our B block and our C block, I'll put a thick border, so on. So I'm just going to keep using this thick border until I have my sections here. All right. Then next, the other borders I like to put in. First, I'm going to go the borders on our actual days. So, well, on our week 1, I'm going to put a thick border. Around week 2, I'll put a thick border. Same thing between week 3 and 4. This is merged, so I kind of have to just skip over it and do this area separately. If you want to do this faster, which you can, I would hit Command and then just section off the other area. And I kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So I'll do that just to make it a little easier for myself. And then next, what I like to do is between our exercises, if it's an exercise that is superset with another, I like to have this kind of like broken line, or, not just a straight line. It's kind of like incomplete, but I'll just select that as the line style. And this kind of just shows that these 2 exercises are superset rather than totally separate. At least that's how I interpret it and try to portray it in here. Same thing for these 2. I'm going to put in that border as well. Good. So that is kind of step 1 to making this day and this outline. Second thing I like to do is I also like to kind of distinguish the weeks by shading the areas. So I'll take weeks 1 and week 3. And I like to use this light gray. So that kind of just distinguishes week 1 from weeks 2, 3, 4. And then to kind of tie this all together and make it look nice, I am going to add some color in. So real quick, what I'll do, actually, oops, don't have that here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my logo from my computer, and I'm going to drag that into my Excel file, because I know we have some blue and gold in Excel, but it doesn't exactly match our Hofstra blue and gold. So I'll kind of show you how to get your exact color that you're looking for. So if I am looking to fill this area, I can go to the bucket. I'll hit the drop down. I'm going to hit more colors. I'm going to click on this guy here, and then I just drag it over the color I want. I'm going to pick that blue, and now I have my exact shade of blue that is in my Hofstra logo. Same thing. I like to make the colors different for my blocks. So for this one, I want to pull some of that yellow in. Select the yellow. And then typically here, I'll go a neutral color. So I'm just going to put some gray in here. And our bulletproof block could stay white, or sometimes I've made it black with some white text just to make it stand out a little bit. Now that is 1 day. In order to make this a 3-day model, I'm going to select the entire day. I'm going to copy and paste that over 2 more times. I'm going to change this to day 2. Let's call this Wednesday. Make this day 3. Call this Friday. And here I have my 3 days. So getting back to the top area, I'm just going to switch over to this already completed template here. And so what I'm going to do now is kind of fill in the area up top a little bit. So this 5th row is where I'm just going to put our strength and conditioning logo. So I just made that cell a bit bigger. I made it a size 104. I'm going to select this whole area. I'm going to write Hofstra strength and conditioning. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And I'm just going to use our Hofstra font. Not everyone is going to have that, but just kind of make it stand out a bit. I'm going to throw in our logo. Copy and paste onto the other side. Try to make it even. Okay. So that is where I'm going to start. From there, I think it's our next cell down. So here, I'm just going to expand the size of this cell a little bit as well. Here, I like to have kind of 3 areas. So I'll skip over that one cell. I'll make these the same size as the days that we have. Merge and center them. And here I'm going to write the sport that we're dealing with, the athlete's name, which eventually will become a drop-down menu. And this is going to be our training phase. So for example, maybe it's the first card in the fall. I'm going to write fall 1. I'm going to center these, make the font a bit bigger. C26, bold. And I like to add my color in here too. So I have my Hofstra blue, my Hofstra gold, and we could probably make this our light gray. And then next, underneath here, I'm going to take this area underneath each. Merge and center. And this is where I'll write my prehab exercises and the warm-up. So this will be kind of all my activation drills, whether it's mini bands or whatever that may be. Same thing, I'll make it look nice, bold, underlined. We can increase the font size a little bit, center it, maybe even bigger. And then I have all this space to fill up with, you know, my exercises and whatever I want. So totally up to you, but that's kind of how I like to design it. Eventually within the cells, once this is filled out with all of our exercises, we could play around with the font size. Maybe we want it a bit bigger, 14, 16. Just thinking of things that may be important to note. I like to center these, or actually I like those ones to be up top in each block, right next to our A1, B1, whatever that may be. I'd say important things here would be, let's say I want to do a shoulders, elevated, single leg, glute bridge. And I'm just choosing this because it's big. Obviously, this doesn't fit in our cell. So 2 ways that we can make this work. If the cell size is big enough, we can wrap the text so that it goes to a second line. If we don't want to wrap the text, then we can shrink the text to fit. Obviously, here, that looks really small. No one's going to be able to read that. So I'm going to go with wrap text. But just to make sure that everything is actually presented in the cells properly. All right, so next what I'm going to do is actually set the print area for this. So if you look at the bottom right corner here, we have these 3 icons. I want to click on the one right next to the minus sign. And what this does is kind of break my template into different pages or show how it's going to print. So if I were to print this right now, this would print as 1 page, this would print as 1 page, and so on. So I would have 12 different pages of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these borders and I'm going to drag them so that all of this is just 1 page. And then eventually, like I said, up here, we're going to have some max calculations and things like that. So I can still have it within my template, but I don't have to print that area. So I'm going to adjust that to here. Next, what I want to do is I'm going to go to page layout. I'm going to look at the margins and I'm going to customize my margins. First, I want to center this on the page both horizontally and vertically. And I kind of like the little to no borders just to get everything to kind of fit on 1 page. So I'm just going to make all of these 0. And then what I'll do is file, print, and that kind of gives me an idea of what this is going to look like. I do want to make it landscape. so that it fits better on the page. And I can click scale to fit. And now I have my template that would fit on my one page. So if I printed this, it would turn out just like this on one page for my athletes. So this is just kind of the design of the actual template and, how to make it look nice, how to use colors, how to make it presentable. The content that goes in it is, totally up to you, and you may need to adjust some font sizes and things like that, depending on really what you have going on, how many sets and reps maybe you have in an exercise. But I guess one other thing to go over here is, I'm just going to adjust these so they look the same. Okay. So what I do is, let's say I have my main exercise in this block. Let's call this my front squat. So for my front squat, I'm going to put my percentages here. I'll have the weights calculated for my athletes. Normally with that, I'm going to pair some type of maybe activation exercise or some type of like banded exercise. So maybe I pair our front squat with a mini band clamshell. And I just use this as an example because in this box, I don't need my athletes to write in what weight they're using. They're probably using a green or a blue mini band. So rather than writing, let's say 5 sets of 10 each side, I don't have to have 5 rows just to write my 10 reps here like I did for my front squat, because there's not really a weight that they need to fill out. So I'm going to save space by taking this cell and merging it. And I'm just going to write 5 by 10 each. And then maybe, oops, forgot those ones. Merge and center. And now maybe here, I'm going to write 5 by 12 each as the weeks progress. Center that. And now it's just a little more presentable, and, I don't have to have a bunch of numbers and empty spaces there. Rather, this is just an exercise that once they do it, they can check it off rather than having to fill something in. Now, let's say in my beat block, I have a dumbbell bench press, let's say. Now, this is an exercise where I am going to want them to fill out what weights they're doing. So let's say I'm doing 4 sets of 8. I just might write 8, 8, 8, 8. And then I leave this space here blank for the athletes to write in what weights they used or what size dumbbells they used. So maybe in my main movements, I have calculations, I have testing and percentages and, numbers that I am prescribing them. But maybe for exercises that I'm using dumbbells, maybe a dumbbell bench press, a split squat, a lunge, something like that, where I'm kind of giving them a little more freedom to choose their own weight for the day. I'll have them write that in. And then, the next week, if we're doing our 8 reps again, maybe I say on your last set, or at least your last set, I want you to try to go 5 pounds higher than you did last week. And they'll fill in, their weights and stuff there. But then once again, let's say I pair this with like a TRX row or something like that. I'll kind of use the same model as I did before. And let's say I'm writing 4 by 10. And they're doing 4 by 10 here. Just makes the whole thing look a little bit less cluttered and a little more organized. Like I said, my personal preference, but where I need them to fill out weights, I'll leave the space and area and just write in the reps for them. But if it's something I can consolidate, and rather than having 4 lines of an exercise where they're just going to check off that they did the 10 reps, I'm just going to merge those cells, and I'm going to save myself a little bit of space on my template. Okay, so that is part 1 on how to design an Excel template.